Start my recording. So we're going, and just because of some noise I have right now, I'm going to ask good Mr. Saxon, could you pray for us to start this off?
Sure, let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this evening. Thank you for this class. I pray that this would be productive. Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this in your name. Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, if I go in and out, I do apologize. I am not at my usual office space, but hopefully what we need for the evening gets us through. I think even my video has already gone in and out a little bit. But tonight, what we're doing is we're focusing on your work in 600. Somebody tell me, what is the final piece of you being a Master's of Education student at Maranatha Baptist University? What's the last piece? Anybody know? What's the last course you'll take? Anybody besides Mr. Saxon?
Writing the research paper.
Very good. The action research paper. That's what we're going to talk about tonight a lot. I'm going to talk about ARP. When I say ARP, what I mean is the action research paper. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up now a file and share with everybody. The action research paper is going to be the center point of our, well, of your end. So let me go ahead and find that and share that with all of you. And of course, as with everything else, it's not going to be immediately available. It sounds like you guys are talking through the two truths and a lie. I have had some kickback on that before. I don't mean to be offensive with that. I just mean to try to change up what is usually the start of these with personal introduction. Tell me about your family or whatnot, which is great. It's always nice to have those things, but at the same time, it's also nice to just hear something new every now and then, right? So here we go. Did anybody? I saw a couple online that asked if I was a Capitals fan. I was like, I'm not actually a Capitals fan. I'm just a big Ravens and Orioles fan. Speaking of that, anybody else really excited that the MLB is actually going to go ahead and have a season this year, unlike we thought it would?
No. Didn't even know.
Could care less about it.
But I'm very happy for you.
Really, out of a class of 20, I figured somebody would be interested. And now, of course.
Totally subscribing to MLB from Thailand. Watch it every day.
Nice. Okay. Well, with that not being where it needs to be, let's just go ahead and talk through 600. So anyway, I asked you about the last course. The last course you'll take in your MEd through Maranatha Baptist University. You'll be assigned a guide and an advisor, and that advisor is to take you through the 600 process. At the very least, that advisor will grade your paper, grade your final action research project, what you turn in at the end, the 25 to 30 page document you'll turn in having created and completed a study of your own. Now, this is really exciting to me, and I told you all this in an open introductory email. I'll repeat it now. I love this class for a very specific reason. This class offers students the opportunity to do research yourself that prior you may have never completed. In fact, most likely, very few of you would have ever worked with your own research at this level. Now, some of you may have, and many of you informally do, especially if you have a classroom currently. But unless you are in a classroom currently, there's a good chance that that really anything that you would do to research better processes for your classroom was done informally. So what we're talking about in 515, and the reason I'm bringing up 600 is because we want to prepare you for 600 through 515. So what we're going to do is walk through this PowerPoint quickly tonight, and then we're going to have questions throughout, during, and anywhere else you would like to have them. In fact, I should go ahead and say this now. I'll ask you this question to get a gauge for everybody. Type into the chat, if you would please, where you are in your MEd process. Are you in the beginning? Are you in the middle or the end? Do you have one course left? Is this your second course overall? Go ahead and type it into the chat, everybody. Jessica's on our last class. That's pretty cool. In fact, there's probably a couple cohorts in here, and so we'll probably see a lot that are similar. But last class, good job. Yep, whole lot of you are in your last class. That's good. That's awesome. So some of you are, I see more halfway, middle. Yep, seems like a lot of you are the similar cohorts. Anybody, this is one of your first classes? I'm not seeing that quite in the chat. Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody that's brand new in the chat. That's good, that's fine. So I asked that question because of this. Oftentimes, students that take this class early on say, I really appreciated that class, not because of the crazy teacher, but because of the content it provided me. It gave me a chance to interact with qualitative and quantitative and mixed methods research, and that I did then consistently in every course I had after 515. Some of you taking the middle, you'll say, oh, wait, okay, so I knew previously that I was supposed to work with high-end material, academic material. I didn't quite really know what that was necessarily. And now I know what it is. Now I'm going to start looking at this, and I'm going to start looking in a certain direction for my 600 project. For those of you, this is your last class before 600, just as well. It's strong for everybody, because if this is your last class before 600, what I'm going to tell you is I want everybody walking out of this class, and this is the whole reason we're meeting tonight, or one of the many reasons. I want everybody walking away from this class making sure you are on track for a solid 600 course. Meaning you walk away having a very clear research question that you and I personally have gone back and forth on, and that you and I are confident can get you through 600. I want to set you up at the end of 515, not only with a PowerPoint you could provide with the IRB to move through 600, but also with the actual research question in mind for what you want to do. Now, for some of you, that's all Greek. For others of you, you've wrapped your heads around 600 a little bit. You'll be drinking out of a fire hydrant at some level tonight, as the saying would go. But as we continue through the course, I'm trying to begin with the end in mind. So just bear with me if you could. Anybody, before I keep rambling, any questions for me in the immediate? If so, just unmute yourselves and call them out. And I'll tell you if we're gonna hit them in the future. Everybody just want me to keep rolling?
I do have a question.
Go for it.
Hey, do we, one of my previous professors had offered to be an advisor. Are we allowed to do that, or we just take whoever is assigned?
Good question. I actually got into trouble with Mrs. Davis for suggesting myself as an advisor a couple of times.
Okay.
So they are assigned by the office.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything wrong, and I'm not just saying this. I don't think anyone's offended or would say it's wrong for you to ask for an advisor.
Okay.
I don't know what the actual process is of her providing those. Yeah, I do know there is a limited number of those of us who advise for 600.
Okay.
I just finished one for Spring B, and I'm working with a couple more for not Spring. Yeah, I just finished one for Spring A. I'm working for a couple for Spring B. There's enough to provide for everybody who needs it. I don't know the exact process of getting those out, but that is something that students can, I suppose, send an email, and no harm in asking.
Okay.
But ultimately the decision is the office's, and I'm not privy to the way that decision is made. I'll put it that way.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else? Again, we're thinking of 600 because by the end of 515, I want you ready for 600. So if this is all new, that's fine. We're going to talk overall through a lot of this. I'm only working.
Dr. Zuckel, may I ask?
Go for it.
Oh, so sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you're fine.
Just wanted to ask, is it possible that we could use the advisor that we've had the whole time with like the coursework for all of that? Or is that something different?
I believe what you're talking about there would be just the advisor you had that take you through the MN program. Just
Yeah,
your,
like academic advisor?
yes, that's going to be, this is I guess this would be an issue of having the same terminology for two different people, two different roles. But I don't believe that academic advisor actually is a 600 advisor. So they're
See.
two different roles there.
All right.
I
thanks
could
for
be
that.
wrong. I could be dead wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. So another great question for my bosses, the ones who get paid the big bucks. Oh yeah,
I had a quick question.
sure.
So I'm a note taker. I'm taking notes as you're talking. Are you going to be giving us whatever's on these slides? Or should I be taking rapid notes as you're speaking tonight?
Wow. Please, I've been told I mumble and roll through things really fast. None of this is tested. So if that makes you want to leave right now, feel free to leave, that's fine. But none of this is tested. All of this came about because students were leaving 515 not understanding why they had 515. Students were leaving 515 saying, man, if only in 515 I had thought about my 600 project, I would have been further along than I am right. Let me get that light outlet back up here. I would have been a lot further along than I am right now. So please feel free to take as many or as few notes as necessary for you to feel that you've comprehended what's available. This recording will be up. If not this one just like it from a previous semester. I can make this PowerPoint available too. That's not a problem. So whatever works for you, Lisa, you have at it.
Awesome. The PowerPoint would be great. Thanks.
There you go. You got it. Anyone else? Sorry, just kind of jump in. Technology. These kids and their technology. All right. Well, I'll keep on going then. Please stop me. Just unmute yourselves and jump in if as need be. Okay. So the path to 600. Let's roll through. We talked about what 600 is. 600 is the final course of your action research project. This is actually a little bit dated now, but this is going to be the information that this is the template by which you will at some point walk through your 600 ARP. This is the template by which you walk through action research project. So title, abstract, introduction, literature review. For some of you, you will have never written before a literature review. This class you will during by the end of this class, you'll have already written one, and through 600, you might even be able to use one of the ones the one which you wrote for this class. This would be chapter 3, 4, and then notice we're working with APA 7 style. If you haven't gotten used to APA 7, now's this class. You will be asked to. It will be asked of you, demanded of you in this class. Those of you who've had me before know that that's just part and parcel of what I do, having been in English education forever. I was instructed and am still instructed from on high that when students are in this program, APA 7 and the manual that goes with it, all of that are brought to you from day one as what's required in the program. And so me asking you to hold to that is nothing new. So hopefully that's the case for you. Let's go ahead and take a look at this second page. Okay, so we're gonna move on now. So 600 course plan. When you get to 600, you will have already worked through IRB, Institutional Review Board. You will have already been in contact with your advisor. Then you will start your research. Now, again, I told you I'm excited about this class because this class offers you the chance to do personal research about something that you are excited about. 600 begins with you having been approved by IRB, which we'll get to that by the end of the class and even this evening a little bit. You will have gotten your advisor that that was referred to earlier, and you will then begin your research. So I've had students think that in the middle of 515 they were supposed to be doing their own research. Please don't. That's not the case. Research starts in 600. Read the handout to the right entitled Tips for Beginning Action Research. That is going to be in 600, the actual course site. Like there's handouts for 515, there's handouts for 600 you could read. You will actually then perform your research, and this will take place in, or it could very well take place in the 8-week time slot, which is a usual, semester here at MBU Online. And you'll email your advisor about all of this. You should be, I would suggest, the 600 students I have, I email with them weekly. We are in constant discussion about what's going on in their 600 plan. At some point, you will submit a rough draft of the research project to your advisor who scheduled it. They'll overview it, talk you through it, and then you'll submit the final project on CNW as we have in the past. It's not CNW anymore, it's called something else now. But anyway, this is
Anthology.
Thank you. Need to change. One of those great new modern slim minimalistic styles of things. But the final project will be submitted through Anthology. Again, this is what 600 looks like. We're looking at what will be right now, but moving on. So I just showed you from week 1 to week 8, or perhaps 2 weeks before week 1 through week 8 of whatever semester you will take your EDUC 600 in. Prior to those couple of weeks prior to 600, you will have walked through IRB approval. What is IRB approval? IRB approval is this. There's an application you will fill out and you will update with a lot of information all about your study on it. This takes a lot of time. The IRB will meet together. It's a group of people at Maranatha's campus. They will meet together. They will discuss all of the possible 600 projects, yours being one of them at the appropriate time. And then Mrs. Davis contacts all the advisors and she says, you will have this person, you will have this person, you will have this person. You're assigned advisor, and you saw a little bit of this in the coursework, remember? So this is before the 600 coursework now. Even what we discussed previously, you'll be talking with them, having conversations with your advisors. They aren't just advisors, they do other things, but you'll be working through this, reviewing your plan with them. You will plan on making some changes based on what your advisor wants, because your advisor is the one who knows, who's ultimately, they're the grader too. Your advisor will be grading whatever you turn in against the rubric, and they'll be the ones. So they should be highly knowledgeable of the rubric. They are highly knowledgeable of what it is that you need to succeed, to get what you need in 600 to graduate. So once IRB okays your study plan, then your advisor will also kind of tweak anything that needs to be tweaked before you begin your research. Okay, so we started at 600. So we started at technically, we started the unit, which was the end. Then we backed up a little bit to a couple weeks before 600. Now we're coming back to 515. For some of you, there's classes in between, but for some of you, there's 515, a couple weeks before, and then 600. If not 515, then 600 right away. So what are we doing in 515? 515, we're talking to you about what is proper graduate academic writing? What is proper academic graduate level research? How do you talk in research? Again, I went through all this. This is how it would be applicable to you early on. As you move through, now you'll be stronger writers. If this is later on, you're going to be immediately taking what you're learning even tonight and applying it in 5 or 6 weeks to IRB to do your 600 project whenever you're going to do it. It demands attention be given to your action research project. So for example, in this class, you will be reviewing a quantitative article and you'll be reviewing a qualitative article. And in your review of both of those, you will provide peer review as well as your own review of them to me, which means I'm going to make certain that you have for sure interacted with 2 solid articles, one qualitative, one quantitative. This is the first time I'll say it, but then I'll say it a lot more throughout the night. What would, in a perfect world, your 515 article reviews, what should those be? What should those articles concern themselves with? Anybody want to take a guess? If you could make it happen, what would those articles be about if you could choose anything?
Your topic of research that you're going to go into?
Yes, exactly that. If I'm going to study why I don't know, why the Baltimore Orioles are the best team in Major League Baseball, if I'm going to study that, it would make sense for me not to begin that research right before I turn to my IRB. It would make sense for me to begin some of that literature research. Again, not the research I'm performing myself, but some of the literature review research. Do it now. Do it in 515, where you're going to get credit for the work anyway. The same could be said of your literature review. In your literature review literature that will help you in 600, that will turn into good project material. We're not, it says, have you not already done this in the first 2 weeks? Well, we haven't. This Zoom was earlier, or this Zoom was later. We're doing it earlier now. This provides you the opportunity to begin your literature review. So I spoke about this before the point came up, but in 515, you can actually begin working on the literature review, which is exactly what it sounds like, the review of literature concerning the topic you're writing about. And therefore, you could actually technically begin your actual research project in 515. That should be exciting. So the course info, this is what you would read. Examines the field of educational research by exploring research models. So we don't just go out and do research however we please. There is an academic way of going about research. There's an academic way of analyzing research articles, applying measurements, applying statistical techniques. Now, I am more qualitative. I actually, a side gig for me is to edit Doctor of Nursing practice papers through Wilmington University, where my wife graduated with her DNP. And what I am all about doing the editing for them, and I'll even edit their qualitative stuff and comment on their theory. I really don't touch their quantitative as much, because the quantitative realm, I have some experience with it. I do not have the level of experience that can describe to you why a chi-square test here would be better than the a 2T test over here, so on and so forth. But that's things that we'll be interacting with here, or those are the building blocks we'll be interacting with in this course. Each student will learn the essentials needed to carry out the entire research process. So that's just knowledge for this course. We'll be learning how to, we're assuming you've never done this quality or standard of academic research before. We're assuming this is the first time. So not only will you get that knowledge, not only will you work through what that looks like, then, as it says, and develop a research proposal that will guide a capstone ARP. So I want you, again, from week 1, if you can, without overwhelming you, I think it's very beneficial for you to not do double work and to do, study, again, why the Orioles are the best team in baseball right now throughout 515, only to then have really why the Reds are the best team in baseball be your 600 project. Okay, so let me take a pause here and actually stop sharing my screen, which is just right here. Questions? Like I said, that's probably drinking out of the fire hydrant, and I am sorry about that. But anybody with a question on what we've talked about, we went all the way to 600, we backed up a little bit, and then we backed up to 515.
I just had a quick question. I just want to make sure I'm thinking correctly through it, that this is really kind of any subject that interests us, not just in the field of education necessarily. Like, for example, I'm thinking something in history, since that's kind of my concentration, or is it more supposed to be geared toward the education side?
Great question. Is Dusty okay? Or would you rather it be
Sir,
Dustin?
please, yes, sir, please.
Okay.
Dustin is what I was called by my mother when I got in trouble, so Dusty's great.
Very good. And I apologize if you see Bezockle or Brian somewhere. My mother decided that if my father was going to have a junior, he could only have that he could have a junior if he never went by Brian, my first name. So he always had to go by Mark. That's me. So I go by Mark, and I make everybody's lives miserable in government and academics where I work because I don't go by my first name. So
Well, I
Dustin,
have 3 first names, so it just
what?
everybody gets that mixed up too.
what am I complaining about then? There you go, right there.
Yeah.
By the way, your setup there looks very professional. Like you've done a lot of videoing in this sphere.
Well, COVID helped since I pastor a church too and did a lot
There
of
we go.
devotionals, and for a couple of years there was just kind of doing it this way, so it helped.
I apologize for mine currently. So that's a great question. The quick answer is it needs to be on education. The the longer answer would be, but if you're also acting pastor who is going to communicate to the faculty and staff at Maranatha Baptist University Online that your intentions are not really to pursue a doctorate in education, are not really to pursue X, Y, Z, they may be willing to have that discussion with you. You're not going to turn it into a paper of why the attack on Normandy should have actually been 8 miles north. You're not going to turn it into that sort of thing. That's nowhere near an action research project. However, whereas most of you will be conducting this in a school or a classroom of lower or higher education, you perhaps, Dusty, may be allowed to conduct this in a church setting, or you may be allowed to do some measure of review about your Sunday school or about your the way in which your attendees go about learning. Does that help?
No, yeah, that I just I was unsure about kind of the parameters of what we were looking at, and so that does help to give me some sense of a direction, just because I was thinking, man, where do I go with this thing? Since I'm not going to be, like you said, I'm not looking for the doctorate in education. I'm doing this to try to add something to the ministry here. And so that does help. I appreciate that.
Oh, I have a quick question, sorry.
I was
So
muted.
in this class, would we get like some sort of guidance or some feedback on our topic of choice? Or is it kind of
So what I'm
to
going,
us?
like I said earlier, it is very much my goal that you walk away from it. I'm not doing my job if you don't walk away from this course having a clear, simple research question. Let me share with you the one that was just completed successfully by Miss Tammy Green. She reviewed how taking students through the Orton-Gillingham dyslexic readers approach, which I totally botched that, I know I did, but there's a specific style of teaching that could go with dyslexic. Lisa, could you help me out here? Do you know, and Jessica, you as well, you know what I'm talking about? It's just Orton-Gillingham for short, right? Okay, so there we go. So she walked through that process with 4 students in her school who scored in recent testing came up with dyslexic characteristics, and basically used, I think, 4 weeks of review with them, measured pre and post measurement. And she roughly, that was her work. That was her. Does the Orton-Gillingham approach help students at Suburban Christian School, whatever it was. Not to say it's not important, I just don't remember the actual name. Who were considered dyslexic by these measurements. So that was a great one. I also, the one I'm working with right now, Miss Emma Anderson, she is reviewing popsicle sticking. So what that means is for several weeks, she has pulled popsicles out of a whatever that have students' names on them. And as opposed to cold calling, she has popsicle sticks. She'll pull the name out and then she'll put their name, from the used or from the new cup into the used cup, and she won't use the used cup until the new cup is all out. So students, it's random, but as it gets closer to the end, it's not quite so random. Students know it's coming, and that's what she studied. She is going to review student reactions to the popsicle method versus the cold calling method. Because, and I'll say this now, there is nothing you're going to come up with that hasn't already been studied at some level. Even cold calling has been studied a lot. There have been doctoral dissertations, that's the word I want, on cold calling. So just understand that with me. Any other questions in the quick meantime? That was good. A couple of them came out.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jenny.
So my question is, I guess it's related to if we have a topic like you're mentioning that's very specific, how the literature that we review, how close does that have to be to the topic? Because, for example, I teach in a bilingual school for institutionalized children in Honduras. So if I'm doing something that's very specific to that, I'm obviously might have trouble finding research articles related to that. So is it, I guess, like how specific is
You'd be
the
really
literature
surprised.
be?
I don't mean to cut you off, but you'd be really surprised, actually. So this jumps ahead a little bit, but it's a great question. Let me try to help out as much as I can with it. So the question basically is, the way I refer to this is, I have a very narrow slice of pie. What I want from every one of you, Taylor, Bethany, Tiffany, Rob, I want every one of you to develop what you understand to be your very, very specific slice of the pie. Okay. Now, where'd you go? Jenny.
Yes.
You said you said Honduras, bilingual, institutionalized, right?
Yes.
Violin teacher. No. There was one more, wasn't there? It was like 4 characters.
No, it was just that.
Just those 3. So
I think she
institutionalized.
said bilingual.
Institutionalized bilingual Honduran students. And by institutionalized, what is that incarcerated? Is that?
No, like they live in a residential children's home, like essentially like an orphanage.
Okay. So we're dealing with, okay, I'll just keep, I know there could be a negative understanding of institutionalized. I'm trying to think of a better word right now, but for right now, I'll just go institutionalized, but institutionalized Honduran bilingual students. Again, you will find all kinds of knowledge out there about Honduras education, about the education of orphans, the education of those who are no longer with their primary, no longer with parents or their legal guardians. You will find all kinds of information about bilingual education, probably in order: bilingual, then Honduran, and then institutionalized, maybe up there with the other two actually. So your piece of the pie, you've already identified it. It is narrow. That is awesome. You're going to narrow it down a little bit. You're going to narrow it down even more, because you're not just going to talk about every single institutionalized Honduran bilingual student. You're going to talk about some part of their education, or something about the way they became educated, or the way they are educating themselves, or whoever is educating them. So you're going to break that down even more. So if the center of your target is how bilingual students in this orphanage, in this very specific orphanage, in this very specific town of Honduras, how they develop a spiritual mindset. I don't know, making throwing that out there. If that's going to be your very small size of pie, you're probably not going to find someone who wrote that article.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that's good, because then you couldn't write it. Well, then I wouldn't want you to write it. You could, because it's Jenny writing it versus somebody else writing it, which is enough. That's fine. That's enough of a difference. And you have a unique view. You all have unique views. Bring your views with you. But if somebody already wrote your article, you wouldn't write it. No one's written that one though. No one's gotten that close, because no one is you with your worldview at your school at this moment, at this time in history, with that student, with that makeup of students. You see what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
the very you mentioned it too. The very center of the target would be what you're studying. Now from there out, you would back up. Think of the archery targets here. That you back up ring by ring by ring. So help me out, Jenny. The very center is what we just talked about: institutionalized children, bilingual, Honduras. What is one ring? Like, back me up one generalized ring from there. Give me if that's the micro, back me up to one macro level.
Probably bilingual schools in Honduras.
You might be even able to back up to bilingual orphanage schools in Honduras. Or I would say maybe drop one of the three characteristics and keep the other two together. So bilingual orphanage education, or bilingual Honduras education. You see what I'm saying? Now,
Yes.
of course, everybody, you can see we would back it up again and again and again. And really, you wouldn't need to go past Honduran education. Am I saying that correctly? Would it be Honduran?
Yes, that's correct.
Honduran education, or orphanage education, or bilingual education. There's so much out there about that.
Okay.
But you wouldn't need to go back any further than that. As you'll discover when you do your literature review, for those of you who haven't done it before, what I'll be looking for you is to get as close to the center as possible, and to tell me, though Barber, Herman, Hawkins, Arts, and Saxon each wrote an article about, Saxon wrote it about Honduran education, Arts wrote it about bilingual education, Barber wrote it about Honduran bilingual education, and so on and so forth. They each have something. There's probably going to be a link between each one of their articles, a thread. They didn't know it, because Saxon didn't know Herman, and Hawkins didn't know Arts when they wrote all their articles. But you're going to find it, Jenny, and
Okay.
Alicia and Kate and Dusty. You're going to find that link. That's what a literature review is. You're going to find the themes, the threads that run between these articles that are focused on what it is you're going to be writing about in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
So does that help?
Yes, it
Now
does.
for thank you, very good. Now for someone who says, I'm not in Honduras, I'm in Indiana, and I'm just a Christian school teacher in Indiana, or wherever else it may be. What I just said to Jenny, please intake that for yourself. You are and this is where the academic field at large would celebrate. You are a Bible believer in the Midwest at a small Christian school that uses multi-grade classrooms. And you have 2 years of education experience. You have 30 years of education experience. You are male. You just name it. You keep naming those things. Each one of those makes you an individualized researcher. You hear what I'm saying? You follow me on that? Each one of those makes up part of your worldview. And therefore, all of that can go into your study. So for example, homework. I can't tell you how many times I've seen homework studied. Homework studies, these things are always with us. I'm the head of a school in Ocean City, Maryland. These things are always with us. even at the beach. Dress code, athletic issues, homework issues. And if you're an administrator, people not paying bills, like those things are just, doesn't matter where you are, even really organizationally. McDonald's has dress code issues, I'm sure too. Like it's always there. Those things get written about a ton, so it's easy to pick on those. So let's just say homework right now. If you want to write about homework, that's fine. But just understand, there will be no excuse for you saying, I have no access to literature. There will be so much literature about that. You will read and read and read. Your problem will be narrowing down the number of articles. You'll be getting so close to the center of that target. It'll be obvious to me if you're pulling stuff from too far away from that center. So do you see kind of where we're going? Those questions, I didn't plant those questions, by the way. Those are great questions to have asked. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Jenny, for asking those questions. Because those help kind of flesh out where we're going in all this. So anyone else?
Sir, may I just ask a quick question on the timeline of all of this? You have mentioned that it would be an 8-week block, kind of similar to all of our other classes, but my first time going through a master's degree in this way, all of my friends have months to years to develop some kind of research and, do a thesis and studies on it and research. And, we just started in this first week getting all the permissions. 2 months.
Two different things. This is not a master's thesis. If you refer to this as a master's thesis, you are if you refer to this as a master's thesis, you are 1, mistaken. You are 2, unaware of the level of, as you mentioned, what goes into an actual master's thesis. Okay, so please do not call this, and anywhere you see master's thesis, please tell me about it, because that needs to come off the table. This is an action research project that will result in the writing of a 25 to 30 page paper, which will evidence that you have completed research. Okay, so your friends are probably doing studies on humanities or doing studies on molecular biology or something like that, where they have to deal with some portion of graduate work that's thinking forward to the PhD, thinking forward to what they're doing later. This is not that. Okay, the Masters of Education at Maranatha Baptist University is meant to be extremely practical. It's meant to take teachers where they are right now and to take them through a graduate program that could lead to most likely an EDD, most likely an educational doctorate. If it's a PhD, it's not that you can enter a PhD program. I mean, doctors often hold PhDs in literature because, it's fun and doctors are really smart. Or so they say, like MDs. You can get into a PhD program not having written a thesis before. That's not a problem. Unless it's some like high-end school that is demanding that certain pathway. But this isn't that. Your program ends your MEd ends in a action and research project. So while the thesis writers will never have to, most of them will not have to actively pursue the research, development, hands-on exploring of their topic, you will. But from this, you could definitely pull enough interest to further yourself into higher studies. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that sounds great, because when I watched my wife do her master's degree, it was the other way around. It was the thesis at the end and a year of thesis research being done, but it was never really exploring the benefit and the values of how she did the research. It was just trying to find, the answers that she was looking for at the end. So this seems like it's really, I like that you said the word practical. I think that's a really cool thing for me to have as like in my tool belt. This is a practical means to find a very detailed kind of set summary answers. But that 2-month block is just like any other course. That's how long this should take. Is that correct?
the ARP is set up so that it can take 8 weeks. There will be some of you that do your action research project in spring, or you complete your last class in spring B. Which means if you're going to take your ARP, you would take it summer A. But wait a second, Bethany doesn't teach in summer A. So how is she supposed to do research on her classroom when she's not teaching her classroom? That's a problem. That's a real problem. So it may be that either A, Bethany changes what she's going to study if she's that determined to graduate at that point, if she's that determined to get her ARP done. It may be that she speaks with the office and says, I want to push off my 600 until fall B. Overall, though, this 30-page action research project is something that's created to be able to be completed in 8 weeks. So from start to finish, from IRB approval to reviewing literature to getting your permission sent out. Now, it does demand that you've done work prior, thus 515. But if you've done the work prior, you should be able to send out your in the first week, you would send out all the permissions, get all the permissions back, begin your research in weeks 3, 4, maybe week 5. In weeks 4 and actually all throughout, be reviewing your data as it comes in so that your literature review, which should have been completed in 515 and then just worked over a little bit in 600, or completely written in 600, that would be like week 6. And then week 7 and 8, you are just nailing down, you are writing that paper, start to finish. It could be that way. For someone else, let's say Heather wants to write this paper and she wants to study 8 weeks of time. Okay, well, she's not gonna be able to study 8 weeks of time in an 8-week course and then write about it. She's gonna have to do 4 weeks previously and 4 weeks later or something like that. Does that make sense? It's meant to be able to be done in 8 weeks, but just the project itself may not make that possible. It just depends. Someone else. Unless that wasn't enough, Robert, Bob, Rob, whatever you go by.
It's Bob, and that's great. Thank you very much.
Bob, artsy. Is it artsy or is it just arts?
It's arts.
It'd be better if it was artsy. I tell you that right. Those
I
of us
get that a
with C's
lot.
in our name have to okay.
I heard it's German. I heard I don't even say it correctly myself. So
Someone else.
So just to clarify, this is probably stating the obvious, but our research project is limited within the confines of our own experience, and within the confines of our like the times.
Biblical Christianity.
Well, I'm just thinking, right now I'm homeschooling. I'm
Yes. There have been many school moms that have gone through this and studied their own children. Mhm. It's meant to be practically applicable where you are. Now, at
Right.
the same time, if you walk away having studied one student, the generalizability of that study is not going to be the same as Alicia's if she's going to study 5,000 students.
Okay.
Make sense?
So, right. And that's what I'm wondering. So that's okay. I mean, like,
It's meant to be practically applicable to where you are.
okay.
At some point in the future, are you going to turn that into a PhD work? Probably not. You
Right.
probably only have to do whatever you studied with that one. You probably have to study 1,000 homeschoolers like unto yourself to make that PhD worthy. All of you
Okay.
should get your PhDs, EDDs, whatever it happens to be, but probably not. Alicia would have less work, technically. She could probably turn that project over into something else a little bit easier. Alicia, I'm not trying to set you up to fail in that way. 5,000 is just, that's way too many in this, but yes, where you are, that does not mean that you all walk away with as valuable of a product. However, like they say about doctors, you don't ask what grades they got, right? Maybe some people do. I've never asked my primary care what grades they got. However, they got that degree So the 600 project can be completed in such a way that the homeschool mom, the pastor, the principal, you name it, thinking through their life and education, could walk away with a practical, with applied knowledge. That's what we're looking for.
Okay.
And there have been many homeschool moms. I had one dad so far, he was a pastor as well, go through this successfully. Okay, another big question I usually get is, I only have 5 students, I only have 10 students. It doesn't matter. Again, to Lisa's point, it's to be, could you go outside of yourself? Yes, and that's it. And for some have a drive to go out and find something larger than themselves. I applaud that, I really do, because that's the sort of thing you'll have to do in PhD work and higher ed work, which you'll all do, of course. That's what you have to do. You're not going to just play in your own sandbox when it comes that far. You will play in other people's sandboxes too. When Tiffany gets done with this project and she goes on for her PhD, whatever she does this project on, she will most likely have to take the survey that she created and run it past school systems around her to, hundreds more around her to get in what she needs done, or go and make herself extremely good friends with several other people who are, where she interviewed 2 people here, she got interviewed 20 people for that. You see what I'm saying? I'm not sure if I'm helping or just spewing words at some point, but. Next question.
Is there a general topic that we could do during the summer? Because obviously we don't have students during the summer. I mean, at least I don't. And I don't prefer to go to the public schools because around here they can be kind of bad. So is there something that would we be able to do a topic on teachers, maybe high school teachers, if we were able to collaborate with them? Is that a topic we're studying, or is there something we can do something with students that obviously we don't have them, but is there a way to work around that at all?
Yeah, so my dissertation was on, the title of my dissertation was, We're Missing Something. Why are there no Black administrators in the Maryland Association of Christian Schools? And so I interviewed throughout several seasons in and out of school, leaders all throughout the Maryland Association of Christian Schools and others, concerning that topic, concerning that issue. And to your point, you could do the exact same thing. Where are you right now, Taylor?
I'm in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, land of cheese. Sorry about Devontae Adams, if you care about that. Sorry. And I'm really
I just
angry
know Aaron Rodgers
right now. Rodgers. Just can't double check. You could take my study and go do it in Wisconsin. I don't know how many minority administrators there are in WACS right now, but you could go and ask teachers, parents, administrators. You could go ask all those questions. You could take all my questions and go ask them in WACS if you wanted to, or whatever. If you are a part of a Christian school or public school, whatever situation you have to be, you could go ask a bunch of questions of teachers, parents. You could limit it to your classroom, upcoming, if you have an upcoming classroom, and talk about, okay, what do 5th grade parents at whatever school think about their summer times? That's too general, but what do they think about summer learning loss? Okay, well, that's a great question to ask somebody. The problem is that might not be something that answers one of these questions. So for everybody, what I would say is what you want to think of right now. If you're like, I have no idea what to study, if you're not like Jenny and know kind of where you're already going, think about things that are going really poorly in your current situation. Think about things that are going really well in your current situation. Think about things that are costing the school money in your current situation. Think about things that parents are ticked off about, even though administration isn't. Think about things that administration is ticked off about, that teachers are ticked off about, that students are ticked off about. Think about those questions, those answers to those questions. From there, you probably have a really good topic to go off of. Now, Taylor, you just need to think about, if you want to do this in summertime, okay, which of those topics can I actually research in the summertime? Can you still get a hold of parents, students, teachers in the summertime? Yes. Will it be tougher? Sure. But could you do it? Yeah. Can you look at classroom data, like a pre-post test in the summertime? No, you can't, because you're not teaching unless it's summer school, in which case that's a great study by itself. So it's up to you. Yes, it can be done. Doesn't have to be just, does not have to simply be done in the school, or done in a Christian school, or done in a public school, or done in a homeschool. It can be whatever you need it to be. It just needs to be done correctly.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. So there aren't any more questions, which there very well may be. This is the part where I don't even mind if you throw a few topics at me right now, if you care to.
Doc,
Go ahead.
as a registrar, I have to work with the advisors a lot.
Yes.
So I've wondered if the topic, how do fundamental Christian college students deal with advisors of the opposite gender, whether or not that affects their college success?
That's tremendous. I love, like I've already told you what my dissertation was on. Studies of gender right now, studies of race right now, studies of those are studies which are gaining ground in our current academic sphere, and especially at a conservative Bible college. That study probably hasn't been done yet. That study probably is, I don't want to say groundbreaking, but that study is you're not going to find. You'll find studies on college advising. You'll find studies on same gendered advisors, I'm sure. You're probably not going to find it on Bible colleges, let alone whatever describers you want to put in front of Maranatha. You're not going to find you're not going to find that study done on those colleges. And if so, I will purchase you Braves tickets, because I just don't think it's going to happen.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. So Lance he's just made his niche known. He's provided for us another glimpse at something that could be done. Doesn't have to be done in school. Doesn't have to be. It doesn't really have to do with the bounds of a classroom. It has to do with the way students respond to their advisors, how they see that having affected them as they walk through their a predecessor in the Office of Online Learning studied the way students responded to a synchronous classroom setup, just the setup. Sometimes, so right now in my school, I have students that are taking Spanish synchronously, and they each have their own laptop and pair of headphones. I know of another classroom setup that is, of course, a teacher with a swivel on their neck, and they have just one camera following them, and everybody's looking at one TV and responding as one, or with one camera, as opposed to, that could be a study. I've had students do the whole digital versus paperback study. That's been done a lot. There's lots going on that. Someone else want to run one by me?
I have something. It's not really a major conflict that's happening in the school right now, but we are in the middle of a debate among the English teachers as to whether or not we should use a vocabulary only curriculum or a spelling curriculum. And so right now it's some teachers are doing just spelling and some teachers are doing just vocabulary. And I had wondered about, would that even be a viable thing to look into that way? And I'm not really sure where to go with any of that, but it was just an idea that popped in my mind.
Sure, that's absolutely fine. It seems like in that way you already have something kind of handed to you that you could do. The problem with that one would be, will that still be the policy by the time you're doing your action research project? Or by that point, will someone have already made a decision from on high and everybody's doing non-vocabulary, everybody's doing vocabulary? You could study, you know, if it's something you could look back on the summertime, perhaps you could study the test results from everybody that went through, or the final grade in the classroom. But even that, if I was an advisor, I'd be like, well, that's not really, you know, there's a lot of things that make up the final grade, let alone a teacher. You know, if anything right now, I hear you say that, I'm like, that scares me as an administrator, because I could have, you know, Sean over here who has Jessica as his teacher, who's only teaching vocabulary, or who's not teaching vocabulary. And I could have Taylor over here who is getting vocabulary with their spelling. And I'm going to graduate 2 different students from 2 different sections of the same grade in this school. And they could be very, very, very differently prepared. That could be problematic. So that's, anyway, that's a more administrative thought. But yes, that is something you could do. You could look at, you could just ask, you could phrase this way: what are the perceptions of teachers at blank, blank, blank school concerning vocabulary-less spelling and vocabulary full spelling? And then after it's all done, go in, or during, go and pull all their thoughts. And then that way you're just providing the perceptions. And as you would the literature review, find the themes interwoven, the threads that go between the different viewpoints. You would report on those. Those are your results. Those are your, that's your review. That's your data you would analyze. That would be qualitative, not quantitative. So yeah, viable. It's just you got to twist it in the right way. I'm going to talk to you about your SRQ, your simple research question. Start right now thinking, what is your simple research question going to be? What is it? And it has to be very specific. Your simple research question will include the population studied. It'll include the way it's going to be tested. It'll include where the study is done. Your simple research question is the baseline. That's the question you're trying to answer. Or that, not, excuse me, not the question you're trying to answer. That's the question you are trying to gather data upon. Do not look at this as a hypothesis-driven project either. You're not going to be saying, you could say, were students positively affected by the Orton-Gillingham approach to learning for dyslexic students? You could say that, but the answer could well be no. You do not want to begin this project if you already know what the answer is going to be. You might have a guess as to what it would be, but if you actually know what the answer is, you shouldn't do the project because it's worthless. You should be looking at a project that you don't know the answer to, or you could honestly say from the start, what are the perceptions of, or what to what extent was such and such helpful, or was such and such helpful? You know, Dusty wants to talk about the way he's going to revamp his Sunday school classes, and he's going to, you know, look at the models of Sunday school classes in the past, and he's going, or they're presently studied out there, and he's going to say, I'm going to move away from a small group and go to a corporate Sunday school. He's going to poll 10 pastors around him and then interview 5 of those pastors around him. Okay, and he's going to be gathering data. He needs to, from the start, be willing to say, I guess this is the better way of saying it, he needs to be willing to say, whatever I think about this, I could be proved dead wrong by my results. I need to be academically honest enough to know that that is a possibility and to say that. Which sounds like that should be obvious, but it's not obvious to everybody.
May I ask a question? Can you hear me? I was thinking about doing, I'm not exactly sure how to word it. I'm special ed, and I have taught in the gen ed classrooms and had students who were struggling and how to work with them. If I interviewed different teachers at Christian schools and try to and others. Is that viable? And then also, would I have to solve that problem, or I could just present this is the problem?
You're not solving anything. I don't want,
Okay.
there is no action research project which should say, in order to solve this issue, we should do X, Y, Z. There's none of that's happening. You are gathering information. This is a
Okay.
research question.
Okay,
Research question. You're gathering information. You don't have the answers. You're not going to walk away saying what should be done. You're just going to walk away reporting what you found. You're the
Oh, that's easy.
cinematographer. You're just videotaping everything around you, and then you spit it out.
cool. Okay, thank you.
When it comes to special education, though, you want to be very careful with nailing down what you mean by all of your terminology. And you didn't say anything, not that you said anything wrong in that question. I'm just saying, like, when you go to approach this,
Okay.
you cannot, I've had people who speak concerning special education, and they're speaking at a macro level that's like dissertation level. You need to go
Okay.
extremely,
General.
you go extreme, opposite, and you go micro.
Oh,
You've got to go
okay,
micro. You need to
Okay.
be looking at one grade level, not 15 grade levels. You need to be looking at a certain sort of, unless you're talking about some kind of administrative issue where the teachers are rising up in revolt because there is no special ed help, which isn't the problem because you are helping, obviously. So unless it's administrative, if it's about a specific class or student type, you got to be very specific. And that's for everybody too. Again, small, narrow piece of the pie, because anything bigger than that, you're not going to wrap your heads around, not your hands around. You can probably do it mentally, but you just simply can't go research 1,000 students for this.
Okay.
Most likely, I mean, you could try it. I'd be all for it.
thank you.
So if anybody wants to go ahead and step away now, this is what I'm doing for the rest of the time. I'm going to stop the recording actually as well, because